All right, everybody, we're on here for this July 25th. Happy Wednesday. I'm Molly Nevola here in the newsroom with intern Jackie.
Hey.
Jackie, it's your last day as an intern.
Last day. Very sad.
Do you have any parting words for our viewers? Or for anybody?
You know?
For yourself?
Just go for what you want. That's what I've kind of gathered. You gotta really be aggressive with what you want to learn and all that you're gonna learn. So.
Yeah. If any of you guys have been following us throughout sort of the many months or year, our stream here in the newsroom, kind of tracking breaking news and live events here, we've been sort of helped by interns along the way last summer into the winter, and now this summer our slew of interns are moving on super shortly. So I just wanted to bring Jackie in for one last little hurrah, saying hey.
It's really sad.
Yeah.
Sad. I got one last zip trip on Friday, but then I'm off to school.
Back to school.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's gonna be fun though.
Well, guys, we're tracking any of the video that is coming in right now. And this morning, interestingly, right in our backyard at George Washington University, there's a summit. It's called Turning Point USA's High School Leadership Summit for conservative high school students, right here in Foggy Bottom area of D.C. at GW. Right before we kind of popped up here, Rick Santorum was speaking to a group of students. Now we have some other students kind of introducing other speakers and stuff. So we're going to kind of jump right in there and see what that's all about, and then flip you over to some other events that are happening on the Hill. I know the House Democrats have a press conference following one of their closed caucus meetings this morning. So we'll kind of flip back and forth and keep you updated as to what's happening on Capitol Hill, and then show you some of the top stories, some of the recaps from yesterday, President Trump in Kansas City, as well as some other interesting featurette type of stories from across the nation. And Jackie's probably going to be helping me out a little bit, maybe going out in the field and see what happens. Okay, guys, happy Wednesday. Let's jump over to GW, see what they're up to in that auditorium.
You'll find about me, I never give up. So I opened up a deli. I even built a counter in my dad's garage. And if any of you ever dream of being an entrepreneur, or any of you ever become a small business owner, there's 3 lessons I learned. I was the first one to work, I was the last one to leave, and I was the last one to be paid. But it was really rewarding. I still remember this one morning. The front of my business was all glass. You have to go early in the morning, you're cutting up the meat, the vegetables, all the fresh stuff. I got like 4 or 5 people working for me. And it's like 2 hours before I open up, and I look out there and there's a guy knocking on the door. And he's got a pickup truck, and it has the seal of the city. I'm thinking, I bet he wants to give me a key to the city, right? No, the guy wanted to give me a ticket for my sign. It was really my first interaction as a small business owner with government in the process. He said my sign was up past 7 days, and I put my sign up to get more business. It pays more sales tax. It pays his salary to go around and harass me. But you know what? At the end of about 1.5 years, I did pretty well. So now I had enough money, I could pay my way through college as long as I went to Cal State, and I wouldn't have to work. And at that time, nobody in my family had really finished 4-year degree. My parents had not. So I sold my business. I'm going to Cal State. I read my local paper. It has this article, be a summer intern in Washington, D.C. with my local congressman. I did not know this man, but I thought he'd be lucky to have me. So I applied, and you know what happened? He turned me down. But you want to know the end of the story? I now sit in the seat I could not get an internship for. Only in America can that happen. So remember how I told you I never give up? So the turn down letter was one of these nice letters. Thanks for applying, maybe you could apply again, or if there's anything I could do, let me know. So I took the turn down letter, I went down to the office. And I said, look, no hard feelings, but I don't need to go to Washington, and you don't even have to pay me. I just want to volunteer, because I wanted to get engaged in the political process. So he said, okay, you can volunteer for a month, and you could cut newspapers. Back in the days, that's what we did. We cut papers, I'd take articles out, I'd glue them to a piece of paper, I'd photocopy them, and I'd fax them to him. So he knew what was happening in the district. A month goes by, and he says, oh, you're pretty good. Do you want to stay here? I'll pay you $100 a month. I didn't need money at the time. I said, great. And that really got me involved in the political process. But then I went and joined, we didn't have Turning Point back then. I joined college Republicans. I became my college president. I joined Young Republicans. I became the national chairman of that. And I thought I would just engage in the political process. I eventually ran for the college board. And then I ran for the state assembly. And I was the first freshman to ever get elected leader. And the great thing about it is we recalled Gray Davis the first year I was in there. And then I ran for Congress in '06. And we won But a sad thing happened. The Republicans lost the majority that year. And I was actually the smallest class for the Republican Party since 1914 that came. Only 13 of us made it that year. And not one of us beat a Democrat. But just as I told you before, I never give up, and I believe in taking risk. They did this little story about me in the Weekly Standard, and they put me with a guy named Paul Ryan and Eric Cantor, and they called us the young guns of the conservative movement. Eric was the leader, Paul was the thinker, and I was the strategist. So what I did, we put this together, we went out and we started recruiting people. In 2010, I was the recruitment chair. I went out looking for people who thought ever about running for office. And I remember going to this one guy, his name was Stephen Fincher, and he lived in Frog Jump, Tennessee. I didn't even know where Frog Jump was. But I sat with him and I asked him if he wanted to run for office. I never talked somebody into running. I want to know why you want to run. Do you have the fire in the belly? And he told me this answer. He said, I'm watching a country change before my eyes, and I do not know how I do nothing. But he goes, Mr. Kevin, I don't think I'm the best person to run. I said, why is that? He said, I've never been elected to anything. I said, that's okay. And at this time, President Obama had about a 65, 70% approval. He goes, oh, Mr. Kevin, I've never been to Washington, D.C. on a vacation. I said, that's okay. And you know what? Stephen Fincher really set the tone that year in 2010, because we ended up beating 63 Democrat incumbents, because pretty much they just wanted to expand government instead of provide us more freedom. And he got elected to Congress, having never been here before. So I became the majority whip, then I became the majority leader. And the leader, I managed the committees and scheduled the floor. Don't you think we have a wonderful president? I'm a big fan of President Trump. I was talking to him last night. He called me. And he had called me the other day, but I didn't have my phone. Bring him here. I'll tell you what, Charlie does an amazing job. And if there's one person this president really admires, it's Charlie Cook and what he's doing here. But Charlie and we went to this event over the weekend, and you couldn't bring your phone. And the president called me on Friday. And so I was talking to him last night. He says, yeah, they were going to go in and get you in this place. I said, yeah, I didn't bring my phone. He goes, how'd you handle that? I don't think I could do that for 2 days. I said, you're president. I think they'd still let you keep your phone if you came. So he'd be all right. But what I want to do is, any of you go into the Capitol anytime? Am I giving? Okay, so if you come to the Capitol, if you want to come to my office, you're more than welcome to come. And these are a couple stories I want to tell you about. I believe in a purpose-driven life. I believe some of you will get elected one day, but doesn't mean you all have to run. But I want you involved in the political process. Do not let people try to crush your voice, crush your opinion. This is why this country was created. This is an unbelievable city. It can inspire you to do all sorts of things. I ride my bike in the morning. I love to go down to the mall. I love to go by Lincoln. But the most powerful part of Lincoln, when you're looking back, you're sitting next to almost 58,000 names that gave the ultimate sacrifice in Vietnam for our freedoms. But I want to tell you where you could be helpful. You want to engage back home. I started by just doing the voter registration for the local Republican Party. But you grew up your whole life on technology. You know what opportunity you're going to have because we have President Trump? You're all less than 18 years old. We have not had this type of economy in decades. I want to give you one small fact, and I want you to repeat it when you go home when anybody asks you about, is there a change? In the last 49 years in America, unemployment's only been below 4%, 7 months in 49 years. And 2 of those 7 months were April and May of this year. The reason why I want you to come to my office, I want you to see some paintings. I have this conservative artist, Steve Penley, and I asked him to paint these different paintings for me. And they're in my office, and you could walk by and you could see them. So in In my interior office, I put up my two of my favorite presidents. I have Abraham Lincoln and Ronald Reagan. But do you ever wonder what those two men would tell you if they were here today? Abraham Lincoln's in black and white. The greatest challenge ever to our Constitution was the Civil War. But do you realize during the Civil War, Abraham Lincoln put the Intercontinental Railway? He started building the second dome. He wanted the world to see that the Union would come back together, that we would be united, malice towards none. But if Abraham Lincoln was here today, you know what he'd tell all of you? Believe in the exceptionalism of this country. America is different than any other country in the world. And the reason why I think Lincoln would say that to you, the Gettysburg Address. He wasn't the main speaker, less than 270 words. You all know it, 77 years ago. Our forefathers brought forth on this continent a new nation.
All right, guys, we're going to switch things up a little bit, come back into the newsroom on a much more of a solemn note today. Today is the funeral for 10-year-old Makiyah Wilson. She was shot 2 Mondays ago, July 16th, here in D.C., in Northeast D.C. It was what they know so far. They don't know too much. They actually have not caught the perpetrators yet, but 4 men in a car who rolled up to this living community area in Northeast D.C. and shot around. Makiyah Wilson was the victim of this. Her older teenage sister was wounded as well, and she had just been swimming that day. They believe she was going outside to go to the ice cream truck. It's just some horrible details about that day. And today is that funeral. It's open to the public at Holy Christian House of Praise in Northeast D.C. And so we actually have that funeral up right now on our live cameras because we have a camera inside of there. Like I said, they opened it to the public. Not all of these funerals do that,
right. But
I think a lot of this was sort of awareness of what happened and sort of let's get this out there that this is a horrible thing, and they still want to find the people who did this. So if perhaps this has relevance to you or you knew about this case, we're going to flash over to that funeral right now and see who's speaking and kind of take in some of that because it is going on right now live. So we want to touch into some of that. So we're going to update that headline and go over to the funeral.
And her 3 older sisters, Jay, Don Jay, and Tasia Lewis, and her brother, Michael Wilson Jr., and her niece, Queen Dior. She also leaves to mourn her grandparents, Cheryl McPherson, Pandora Wilson, Don Lewis, Renetta Simmons, and Michael Day. Godparents, Melissa and David. Aunt Donica, Sarah, and Fatima, and a host of her other aunts, uncle, cousin, family, and friends. Special acknowledgement of her very special friend, Papa, Nazia Robinson Show McPherson.
We have the interjection in our program here. We're going to have remarks by Kadir Muhammad, and then following him will be Raheem Jenkins. Put your hands together as they come.
Assalamu alaikum to Apostle Steve Young and to our dearly beloved parents of our lost dear sister, Makiyah Wilson. Let me say first by bringing you greetings from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and his condolences to the family and his love for all of us that are here. Of Assalamu alaikum. Now, that simply means peace be unto you. Let me say by thanking the God I serve, coming, intervening in our affairs, kind of like interrupting what's taking place in our communities today. We thank them for reaching and meeting the most honorable Elijah Muhammad today again for the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. One scripture that comes to my mind, Big Mike, Sister Donetta, for little Mumu is this, that in the Holy Quran it says, surely Allah never changes a condition of a people until they first change themselves. Let that kind of like melt in a little bit. Now, I don't know the brothers, who made this mistake or error. A mistake is unintentional and error is intentional. But I want to say to all of us, let's stay close. Something interesting is taking place. There was a Makiyah Wilson on the West Coast. And then now here's a Makiyah Wilson on the East Coast. Well, Wilsons, we gotta walk better, walk together, and stand strong. Black men, protect your queen. And what I don't like about us is I see more of little Micaiahs going to school by themselves, skipping with a backpack on, and then I don't see no parents, no big brother, no small brother behind them. And if I was to stop my car and assist them, they might charge me with kidnapping. So I gotta back up and just watch and make sure she gets to that front door of this school. But parents, doggone it. I know I can't blame you, but I gotta blame your parents. I can't stop them, but going all the way back. When they pulled the wool over our eyes and tricked us and believing that way that we are part of that system. I'm disturbed by this.
Come on, sir. Talk.
The songs we sing are great. She leaves us. She's like a warm sweater to us. And every time Nettie and Big Mike and the small children want to reach out, they got to find something that she used to wear. Touch it and feel it, put it on. Because they know that that's their loved one. But I want to know all of you. And I don't like the ones that forced her off the highway of life on exit 10. Where was the state brothers and the so-called, opposites that would have walked? Now I gotta put the blood on him because we normally go in your communities and walk and we talk to people.
Come on.
Churches, Muslims, mosques. Yeah, but you two, some of y'all know them brothers. No, not brothers, but others. They're not a part of us. They're not the real gangsters. Don't let these bow ties and these gospel gods fool you now. Don't let them fool you now. We can go back, yes sir. We can go back like we used to be. How many of y'all like tea? It's like putting a tea bag in hot water and just watch us change and go back. Don't take but a few seconds. If I and the brothers with me see them,
greet you in the traditional greeting of Islam, Assalamu alaikum. And to my Christian family, I say praise the Lord. I'm not going to call this baby's name, for I'm not worthy to call her name. Same story. different family. Same story, different family. Reverend Kadir, you're absolutely correct. Y'all got this game twisted. If only our PTA meetings would look like this, guys. In Ward 8, not long ago, I made a statement and my mother came to me and said that she had never heard it before, and I'm going to repeat it here. See, why I'm not going to call this baby's name, because I heard the explosion in her mother's womb. As I've heard the explosion of other mothers' wombs, when the news came that they had lost their. So now those four cowards because you got the game twisted. And not only do they have the game twisted, but every black man in the sound of my voice in this place of worship, you too got the game twisted. All this anger at the police, the chief of police, who I was telling, this is an outright violation, and you should demand that whoever those cowards are, wherever they are, they can't sleep, they can't eat, they can't rest, they can't dress, they can't stop. Now, a bag of weed should be sold in this town till the cowards are found. Now, the go-go should be attended till the cowards are found. I said it ain't hard to find. Always repeat yourself. Nothing should move in this town until those cowards. And not just this angel, but every time we lose a child in this town, the town should stop. Pastor told me to take my time, but I'm going to end here. I got a 17-year-old son. He just graduated from Thurgood Marshall. National Honor Society. On his way to Clark University in Atlanta. Now ask me why I'm not celebrating. Because the reality of somebody stopping him on his journey is a nightmare for me. That you can't allow your children to go out and socialize for fear that they won't come back. Family, how did we get here? How did we find ourselves in this place that we are fearful when our children leave us, that they will not come back in the manner in which we sent them out the door? We've got to stop this. So here goes again. Little dudes, wherever y'all at. Y'all got this one wrong. Now's the time to stand up and man up. There's a reckoning that has to take place. God has ordained this reckoning. There's no place to run. There's no place to hide. They're coming for you. Soldier up, man up, and face the righteousness of justice. This is even street law. You can't justify this to me. There's nobody in here that can stand and discuss with me that this is being hot. This is being intelligent. This is the sum total of your mistake. So as I close, we can't keep doing this. Whose family is next? Whose family is next? No middle school boy crushes. No prom. No graduation. No college. No first jobs. No getting married. No babies. This is a wrap. And how many warnings does a God of your understanding have to give us as a people before we get it? We need to police this ourselves. That's right. Y'all got 24 hours. That's what I'm saying. 24 hours.
Brother Raheem, I haven't seen him in a while, but he used to have dreads just like me. The thing I love about my Muslim brothers is they embrace us, Christian brothers. There's no big them and little us. It's all us that want to do God's will. That's why he said the God of your understanding. We're now going to have remarks from a representative from mayor's office. Amen?
Thank you, Apostle Young, to family, to mother and father. There are no words that we can put on paper today. For that reason, I'm not going to exhaust our time by reading a letter of sympathy, but know this, that you are in our prayers. How many of you were able to see all the folk in here and all the folk outside? But truly, your community is behind you. I bring you condolences of Mayor Muriel Bowser, but you need to know this. I should not be here to hand you a letter of condolence. I should be here with a letter from the mayor celebrating Michaela's third opening of our ice cream store throughout this city. For her dreams and all her loves and her lives came to a standstill. Yes, we can follow up with you and their services for the community, but we need to stand strong and draw a line. So the words that I give to you today do not come from Mayor Bowser, do not come from any other politician in this city, in this world, but they come straight as a telegram to you from our Lord and Savior. Let not your heart be troubled. Ye who believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house are many mansions, and I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go to prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you unto myself. And whither I go, you know, and the way, you know. But Thomas said unto him, Jesus, we know not whither thou goest, and how can we know the way? And Jesus said, I am the way, truth, and the life. The truth will come to light. This living and this life will not be in vain, but it will take all of us depending upon each other and holding those in high power accountable for the things we put them there for. And I'm here to tell you that does not end today, but it begins today. Thank you.
And now we're going to prepare ourselves for a dance presentation by Robin Graham and Lisa Shawnson Canty. Amen.
Tempo, you are the voice, we are your song, you are our God, we are your people, you are the light, we stand in awe, we stand in awe of you. We stand in awe of you. Not by might, not by power, by your spirit, God. Send your spirit, God.
Praise God, everybody. We want to now have remarks from Reverend Lionel Evans, Bishop Raymond Curry, Councilman Trayon White from Ward 8 Council, and lastly, Pastor Andre McLeod, in that order. Reverend Lionel Evans, Bishop Raymond Randolph Perry, Trayon White, and Pastor Andre McLeod, in that order. Amen.
Church, amen. We come to be with the family of Mount Lebanon Baptist Church. The family, this lovely family where they grew up. We want to say to the family, we love you. We're here with you. This is just the beginning of our outpouring of love for you. And whatever we can do, we know we're going to do. God bless you. Amen.
Amen. Let's give God a hand clap of praise. Bishop Randolph Perry of the Shepherd's House of Restoration. We're located in Clinton, Maryland. And our sympathy is with the family, friends, and the church and the city during this time. I always listen to see what God is saying in times like this. I've heard education, I heard police, I heard take back the streets. I heard a lot of good things from our esteemed speakers that have come forth. Now, I would venture to say that today that we have a challenge. And the challenge is just that. We need to ensure that we take back education. Because it is through education that we can still pull ourselves up by our bootstraps. It still is an expectation that we get policing. It's still an expectation that we take control of the cities and the streets again. We have an expectation now. The death of this beautiful young lady and the gifts. There are other gifts and talented young ladies and young men out there as well. So we have a challenge. So let's not stop right here. Certainly there was a cry for vengeance, and that's not, my thing, because whatsoever a man sows, that's what he also reap. Yeah, their reckoning days is coming. But we cannot stay there. We got to move on to what we heard. We heard education. Let's get back and take control of our education system. Let's begin to expect policing. I just believe as we move forward in the days ahead that we'll see some positives come out of this negative. And certainly we at the Shepherd's House of Restoration will keep you in prayer, because we on the other side, and what affects D.C. also affects Prince George's County. So we all one family. God bless you all.
Good afternoon, church. First, I would like to thank our apostle, Steve Young, for his leadership. Give him a round of applause, you guys. And I'm going to tell you why. Last week, I had the honor of sitting with the family in the back room, and they were asking about the service, preparing for the service. And I think someone from the family asked how much this is going to cost. And the lady said, this is free. This is free. And that's the work of God's children, to do stuff for the community, not just for money, not just for fame. That's the work of the Lord in the community, not just on Sunday, but every day. He said it's free. So today I come here with a humble heart and a hurtful soul to Donetta and Mike and all the grandmothers, the brothers and sisters, just saying that hurt people, guys. And as I begin to think about what happened in that situation, I know there were some young men who were probably under the influence. that did that in our community, not just to Micaiah, but to the other individuals that was wanted as well. And far too often we have individuals in our community who don't care about their lives. So they don't care about the next person's lives. And at some point we have to do something about that. And hurt people. Hurt people. I've done 113 funerals in Washington, D.C. at the age of 34 years old. That's crazy. And I beseech you today to tell you that the population has shifted from talking about gentrification to genocide. I'm from the real D.C. But we had a lot going on in the 80s and 90s. I was born in 84. We had 78% African Americans living in Washington, D.C. Right now we have 47% in Washington, D.C. So the population is shrinking. We cannot afford to be divided right now. A house divided against itself will never stand. I'm going to say it again. A house divided against itself will never stand. And we need men to be men. I'm going to say it again. We need men to be men. See, I was in a situation a few weeks ago, right? With one of my young men who I mentored. And I'm going to keep it real. He killed somebody. And I had to make a decision. What am I going to do about it? So I made that young man turn himself in. I made him turn himself in. And he has to face the consequences of his actions. Because that's what real men do. And I'm going to tell you right now, the young man who did that is related to somebody in this room, because DC ain't but so big. And we know who did it. Somebody in this room right now know who did it. And it's on us to hold them accountable, because we know we play a part in the conspiracy that's going on in our community. And I'm going to say this, I'm going to close, because it's always at a funeral, at a visual, it's us that's involved in the service, and there's always a group that's outside. And the people that's outside is the one that need it the most, because someday, somewhere down the line, they're going to need the Spirit of God to enter their life and speak to them. I say they don't have it because I don't know their story, but you know how it goes. We need the Spirit of God back into our community. Point blank, nowhere around. We need the Spirit of God back into our community. The Bible says, my people who are called by my name shall humble themselves, turn from their wicked ways, pray and seek my face. I will hear from heaven, and I will hear that. I see we're leaving God out of the equation, you guys. It's about these babies, man. I'm tired of doing the visuals. I'm tired of doing the funerals. But if we don't get God back in this equation, guys, it's going to be one of us. It might be one of us standing up here. That's right. It can happen to any one of us any given day. It's not about politics. It's not about the preachers. It's about having the present Spirit of God in our life. To submit to His will. And figure out what you wanted me to do with this vessel, God, because you're not wanting 1 million. You wanted 500 million. And this baby laying here today should be a message to us all. We got to get it together. We got to check in. We got to check in. We have to check in. If you're not right with God, not right with the Lord, you need to check in. You need to check in right now, but right now. Because today, they say here today and gone tomorrow. No, here today and gone today. You better check in. I love you guys, man. I want to thank the pastor, the ministers, Minister Kadir, and the pastors here that joined us here today, but it's really about us. We can't wait for the police to do nothing for us. If we wait for the police to police our community, we're going to wait a long, long time. We have to police our own communities. That's when we want to see change, policing our own community. So I'm on a mission, guys. I'm not stopping. We can't conquer anything we're not committed to. We got to keep doing this over and over. We're going to lose the population of African Americans in this city. I'm telling you what I know. I met a lady in West Virginia the other day. She said, "Whoa, Mr. Ward 8. So how you know me? I'm hiding. Nobody know me." And she said she's from Washington, D.C. She live in West Virginia, guys. So I started thinking to myself, how many other people live in West Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, because you can't afford to live anymore? And I'm going to digress for the sake of time, but I'm going to say I love y'all. We can't keep doing this. I send my love to the family, Donetta, Mike, and all the brothers and sisters, the family, the whole family, guys. Because she a part of our family. And if we don't see it like that, we're going to miss the village model. This young lady is a part of all our family. If you don't feel the hurt and pain or tired behind seeing this young lady go like that, then there's something wrong with you. Check in, guys. Check in. Thank you. God bless.
Praise the Lord, everybody. Praise the Lord, everybody. Can I get every believer to put your hands together and come on, let's stand on your feet and let's magnify the name of the Lord. Come on, if you believe that God is the only God, that He's the real and true God. Come on, let's just give Him our praise. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Come on, we need to be strength for this family. I thank God for what has been said, what we've heard so far, and we thank Him that we can't leave God out. Hallelujah. I will lift up my head unto the hills from which comes my help. All of my help coming from the Lord above. Come on, can I get somebody to open up your mouth and say hallelujah? Can you open up your mouth and say thank you, Jesus? Come on, can you give Him a good praise in here? This won't be the last time some of you will be in church, but since we here, and we magnify the name of the Lord. Come on, let's magnify Him. Let's glorify Him. Let's shabak Him. Let's give Him what He is due. You owe Him a praise. You owe Him a praise. You owe Him a praise. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Thank you, Jesus. Protocol has been established. We thank God for the apostle of this house, Apostle Stephen E. Young Sr. And we thank him for, amen, his generosity, his hospitality. And we say to the family, tough times don't last, but tough people do. The race is not given to the swift nor to the strong, but to the one who endures to the end. Just like the Energizer battery outlasts the trouble. I bring you greetings from the Restoration Kingdom Ministries, amen, church over in Forestville, Maryland, amen, but we are a part of the same God, amen. It's the same God. If He did it before, He can do it again. It's the same God. Somebody say, He's the same God. He's the same God. He's the same God, amen. And God is concerned, amen, and He's working it out for you. Give God a praise in here, amen.
Praise God. We heard a lot today. But most importantly, we are all one family. And as I said to you earlier, this is my daughter, your daughter, your child. It takes all of us.
That's how we do it.
When we were kids, Miss Ann up the street would straighten me out if she saw me down there at Eastover acting like I didn't know who I was. And when she saw my grandmother, she would tell her, I saw him down there around the corner. I gave him one and sent him back to you. And my grandmother would say, after she gave me one, thank you very much. It takes all of us. Amen. We're now going to have a solo by Mr. Robert Martin. Following that, we'll have a solo by Tiffany Turvey. In that order. Amen.
me. Beyond the sky, brothers and sisters, there's one for you. Jesus, he promised me a home over there. Jesus promised me a home over there. No more sickness, sorrow, pain, or care. He promised me a home over there. Jesus, he promised me a home over there. Jesus promised me a home over there. No more sickness or sorrow. No more sickness or sorrow, pain or care. Jesus promised me a home over there. Now come on, all up the belt with the best place that you have. Come on, heaven is a prepared place for prepared people. I dare you to bless the name of Jesus. Come on with the clapping of your hands and with the lifting up of your voice. Come on, we magnify him and we glorify him. If this God will still give you praise, if this God will still bless you, if this God will still lift you up, if this God will still magnify you, come on, he promised me a home. Come on, anybody else who knows about that? It's talking about the Lord, and it's talking about heaven. Come on, bless the name of Jesus. Come on, we give him thanks, praise, and we give him thanks, glory. Come on, we bless you. Come on, we bless you. Come on, we say stretch for family. Come on, clap your hands all over the building and give him thanks, praise. Come on, we bless the name of Jesus. Hallelujah. What do you do when you've done all you can? Seems like it's never enough. And what do you say when your friends turn away? You're all alone. Tell me, what do you do when you feel being wrong? Seems like you can't make it through. Well, you just stand when there's nothing left to do. You just stand and watch the Lord see you through. Yes, after you've done all you can, you just stand. Tell me, how do you handle the guilt of your past? Tell me, how do you deal with the shame? And how can you smile while your heart has been broken and filled with pain, And tell me, what do you do
He and Senator Patty Murray, a Democrat from Washington State, negotiated the first budget agreement in a divided Congress since 1986. In 2015, he became chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee. In the fall of that same year, he was elected Speaker of the House. A committed conservative and public servant, Speaker Ryan has spent his life advocating for real solutions that will expand opportunity for all Americans. And to the speakership, he has brought the same passion for getting results. No matter the field or industry, there are common qualities that exist in an effective leader: humility, optimism, industriousness, and kindness, among others. Speaker Ryan possesses all of those traits. For as long as he's been in public service, his drive to solve complex public policy challenges has been fueled by a passion to help people. We're so excited to have the summer interns here for his remarks today. Without further ado, please help me welcome Speaker Paul Ryan.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. So, I wanted to actually give a speech today. I've been thinking about this a bit. You have to know that I sat in your shoes not all that long ago as an intern myself, and I've been thinking a little bit over the days, weeks, months, and years about the state of things these days. I love that we do this intern series. We've been doing this for a number of years now, bringing everybody from all the different offices together. And as I mentioned, I started off as an intern here. I started off over in the mailroom in the Russell office building, then in the Hart office building, and eventually I figured out that the House side was way cooler than the Senate side, and I've been basically been a House guy ever since. In between, I spent my nights waiting tables over at Tortilla Coast. How many of you have gone and eaten there? Right. Make sure you get the sunset sauce on top. Closing time, I would go and have a bottle of Pacifico with the busboys. I made a lot of friendships in my early 20s right here on Capitol Hill. These days, when my shift ends, I'll have a Miller Lite with a colleague or two. Then I call my family who's at home in Janesville. In many respects, not a whole lot's changed for me. One of my daily prayers is to keep my sense of self. It's one of the points I want to make with you. My enthusiasm for ideas that got me to come and be an intern in the first place, to seek this as a vocation, passion for policy, a sense of things that brought me here. I always have thought on a daily basis, keep that sense of enthusiasm, keep that sense of self. It's really important that as you go through these opportunities and twists and turns in life, that you keep the things that animated you in the first place. So I see myself in you, to say the least. I look around here and I see people who are coming here thinking the same thing, doing the same thing that I did in 1991 and 1992. The challenge as I see it is to basically sustain that energy, keep that faith in your future. This to me is basically a challenge for all of us. And here's what I see. I see that curiosity can often seem no match for cynicism. Disillusionment is often becoming our default state. And there is a change that's occurring today, and that's what I want to talk with you about. On the 4th of July, Gallup reported an alarming drop in American patriotism. Only 47% of adults now say they are extremely proud to be Americans. It's a record low. Here's the way I see it. It is no longer just that our passions are getting the best of us. More and more, our politics is enabling the worst in us. And this is your generation's challenge, our generation's challenge. We are no longer seeing our opponents as sort of the other side, but as the others, as targets, as someone who is not fundamentally like us. The more politics preys on our divisions, the more we become defined by our divisions. This leads to a view of life that is a zero-sum game view, where one group has to win at the expense of another. All of this is slipping further into our daily lives. So we are finding ourselves too easily retreating to the comfort and the conformity of our tribes. There's a good book written about this right now that's out there. This blinds us to the perspectives that others bring to the table. In turn, we ourselves don't reach out and we don't offer our time and our energy, and we don't understand different perspectives. Social media. Social media just amplifies all of these trends. We have an industry where you can make money on feeding fear and feeding resentment. We're caught in this paradox where we are more connected than ever before, but we could not feel more disconnected and more alienated from each other than ever before. That is why, for all of the big challenges that are out there, the one that keeps me so concerned is what's going on right now in our civic life. The question is, what do we do about it? Well, this is what I think all of us have to take some time and take some stock and think about. Always remember this, and this is what I always go back to. This country, our country, is a beautiful idea. It's this awesome experiment. It gives us this chance to be free. It gives us this chance to be happy. It also gives us this space to resolve our differences and to work together to advance a vision of liberty and a vision of justice for all. So guess what? It is our job to preserve all of this. It is a job as well. It's real work. It is certainly worth the effort. The American idea, if you think about it, this beautiful notion that the condition of your birth does not determine the outcome of your life, this has made us the most free, the most flourishing, the most generous country on earth. And this idea is something we can never take for granted. And I don't think we will as long as we remember our common humanity. We just can't let our divisions overtake our basic respect for one another. We need to recognize that we are all less than perfect. We all fall short. We all struggle. We don't have it all figured out. We all need to be heard. We all want to be heard, but we all need to be needed. Here's the way I look at it. Our humanity, it spurs us to find perspective. It spurs us to listen. It spurs us to lend a hand. And this, without question, is our greatest antidote, the greatest antibody we have against the forces of alienation, our common humanity. By rediscovering our common humanity, we can take the oxygen out of tribalism and what has come to be known as identity politics. One way we can do this is a resurgence of ideas, of substance, of reason, by actually engaging on the merits. Don't judge your views based on emotions. Don't judge it based on scorekeeping, but on reason, on facts, on the merits of an idea. The first, maybe best advice I ever got when I came here, and when I was a freshman, I was 28, as Katie said, I looked around Congress and I said, who are the most effective people in Congress? I should probably go to those people and ask them, what do you know now that you wish you knew then? And it didn't matter to me what party they came from, just the people who I thought were really effective at advancing their causes. You know, the guy who gave me probably the best advice was Barney Frank. I don't know if you know who Barney Frank is. He left a few terms ago, a liberal Democrat from Massachusetts. We had pretty much nothing in common, other than I knew he was really effective. So I went to Barney Frank, and I asked him for breakfast and to give me some advice. He told me what he loved about the House. He told me it was a genuine meritocracy. This is back in 1998, mind you. You get ahead based on the power of your ideas, based on your ability to make a persuasive case. Focus and specialize, and you will actually make policy in that area. These days, because of all that has happened, we don't even really set out to persuade anymore. We just hit each other over the head until the music stops, it seems. For all the provocation, there isn't that much that's actually thought-provoking. We rarely skim below the surface. Well, the way I look at this is we should not be deriving our meaning from building a brand around ourselves. We should derive our meaning from our commitment to our ideas, to our convictions. We call it beers versus doers these days. Rather than just searching for the nearest echo chamber, putting our ideas to the test makes us strengthen and improve them. That is what the core of Congress is about. Not just score settling, but actually persuading, arguing, converting. This makes us better. This gives us more perspective. We can also rediscover our common humanity by improving the tone and raising the level of our debates. It's well-trodden ground. People say it all of the time. We need to disagree without being disagreeable. Well, we really do actually kind of need to take that to heart, and each of us need to benefit from this. It's not just about good manners. It's about the manner in how we govern. It's about our ability to solve problems. Civility is a civic imperative. A healthy discourse allows us to navigate our disagreements in the search for the common ground, to accept good ideas even if our side did not come up with them. I know this may sound trite, but it really is something that we have to get back in the front of our minds if we're ever going to turn around and improve the level of our discourse. I see Alexis de Tocqueville as one of those great writers that saw what was wonderful about America. Too often, we see one side and we go to the other side and we don't respect it. De Tocqueville was brilliant in how he wrote about how we settled our civic discourses in a civil way and we got the greatest outcome. Our discourse, when it's the most vibrant, it's not just a visceral show of hands. It is a show of heart. It is a place where we come together for thoughtful discussion, where we have all these different civic mediating institutions where we do these things. We deconstruct each other's arguments instead of impugning another person's motives. That, to me, is the best advice I could give you as you look at this. Don't try and impugn another person's motive. Deconstruct their arguments to make a better argument. Sometimes things get heated. That's fine. Look at my Twitter feed. You'll see exactly what I mean. I mean, that's okay. I personally can't control that, but what I can do is control my own actions. So I choose not to respond in kind. Respond with kindness. Let people get stuff off their chests. Move on. Don't take the bait. And that's the other challenge that your generation is going to have. Don't take the bait online. Snark sells, but it doesn't stick. It doesn't last. It doesn't unite people around a bigger idea or a greater cause. Personal engagement takes work. It takes patience. It takes following my mom's advice. You got two ears, one mouth, use it in that proportion. It is really hard in your generation, in the online generation, to take that advice. We need to revitalize this, what I used to call the battle of ideas. We need to be grateful for this every day. One big thing we can do to rediscover our common humanity is to strengthen those very institutions that promote togetherness and connect us to one another. This may sound heavy, but it's really important. And this is what de Tocqueville talked about. We call these mediating institutions civil society. It's really just a way of describing our communities. It's churches, it's charities, it's PTAs, it's little leagues, food banks, shelters, college. Think of how you come to know different people. Think about how you know different people in your life that are different from you and how you've benefited from their perspective. That is civil society. That is those great institutions that stand between ourselves and our government. Many of you may have studied de Tocqueville. He basically said this is what is the genius of our democracy. This is sort of that unseen glue, that fiber that keeps us all together. We are constantly uniting as Americans in some way every day through these interactions. This, to me, is what has to be refreshed. Because if you take a look at the bubble we are often in, at the tribalism we actually experience, whether it's in our enclaves, in our echo chambers, or online, we are pushing this aside. We have to go reacquire this. As politics increasingly overtakes our daily lives, it breeds a narrow vision of society where there are basically two actors, the individual and the government. It diminishes what goes on in that space in between, where the stuff of life happens in our daily lives. It is where we form our passions and learn our different perspectives. It's where you find this person is different from me, this person doesn't agree with me, but there may be something I can benefit and learn from this person, and I want to respect that, and hopefully I'll get respect in return as a result. If we want to rediscover our common humanity, we need to expand the space where this occurs, civil society. We need to give these institutions the maximum freedom to help people. I tell you, over the years, I have met some incredible leaders changing lives in our communities that I have learned so much from. One of them is a woman who lives not 10 miles from here named Shirley Holloway. She runs a shelter over in Anacostia. It's called the House of Help, City of Hope. They have served thousands of people struggling with addiction and helplessness. She doesn't just get people off the streets, she does quite a bit of that. She gets them back on the path of life. It is amazing the transformation that people go from addiction and homelessness through her program on to really happy, healthy, fulfilling, productive lives. Her motto is basically this: we don't see the problem, we see the person. These are really good words to live by. And they really basically sum up my message today. See the person, not the problem. This is where our road back to common humanity starts. With engaging each other more, by engaging in our community more, we can reclaim this great sense. It's about keeping your cool. It's about keeping your sense of self. It's about understanding that there is a new challenge in your generation that you're going to have to overcome if we're going to get through all of this. To boil it all down, here is the choice you're going to need to make. And it is the choice I always tell our new members of Congress when they come in here. I feel like the old guy now. Did you come here to be something? Did you come here to build a brand? Or are you here to do your part? Are you here to make a real difference? If you're here to do good, to advance ideas, to do your part, to make a difference, we need you. We need doers. We don't need beers. We need leaders. So as you go back to your campuses, as you go back to your communities, think about ways you can engage people more on policy and on the problems of the day. Start right there. Take that first step. Think about the estrangement and the alienation that is occurring more and more in our society today. And if you just start thinking about it, I know that you are going to be the people who will help solve this challenge and problem we have in society. Remember that we do not have to be trapped by cynicism. We do not have to lower our sights. We do not have to make it all about the Packers versus the Bears, which, by the way, I have a strong opinion on that one. We don't have to lower our gaze. So that's basically the message I wanted to say to you. As I thought about my annual trip to the intern seminar, you have an important role in this time in our country. Know it, recognize it, get excited about it, and thank you very much for hearing me out today. I really appreciate it. Oh, there it is. I was looking for this microphone. I'll come on down. You guys have any questions? Better not. Yeah. Hey, who are you? Where are you from? Who you're interning for?
My name is Daniel Vrablik.
And are you from Wisconsin?
My name is Daniel Vrablik. I'm actually from Cleveland, Ohio, and I intern for Congressman Warren Davidson from the 8th District. Speaker Ryan, I come from a fairly left-leaning school in Ohio that happens to be Catholic. I hear a lot of rhetoric at my school about how President Trump and Republicans do not want to protect the earth from...
You go to Xavier?
I go to St. Ignatius High School.
St. Ignatius. Oh, high school.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Sure, I know St. Ignatius. I went to Miami of Ohio. I have some buddies that went to St. Ignatius. Mm-hmm. Yeah, go Red Hawks. There you go. So go ahead. Sorry, I'm with you.
No problem. So how should I respond to this so I can combat this rhetoric?
Okay, what was the quick, give it to me again.
That's okay. I hear a lot of rhetoric at my school about how President Trump and Republicans do not want to protect the earth from climate change.
Oh.
So how should I respond to this so I can combat this rhetoric at my own school?
Our goal is not to have to make some false choice between economic growth and progress and being good stewards of our environment. I think technology is the answer. And so we think we can live in harmony by having good jobs, faster economic growth, and technological development, which helps us. Look at batteries, look at all the above. We have an all of the above energy approach, which at the end of the day means faster economic growth, means faster technological growth, which means we can live with far less, with far more conservation and a far better, more efficient energy system. So we don't have to choose between hitting our economy with confiscatory taxes that makes the poor poorer, it makes the economy slower. We should be able to have economic growth and innovate our way toward a cleaner environment. That's the way we see things. Yeah.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My name is I am a rising sophomore at Harvard College, and I'm serving here with Kathleen Rice in the New York 4th District. My question today has to do with political courage. So one of the books that I read when I was a kid was John F. Kennedy's Profiles in Courage, and it really impacted me and made me want to pursue a career in politics. I feel like today's Washington, there's kind of a lack of political courage to do things that are politically, might not be the most politically expedient, but are morally just and right. And specifically, I was concerned about Congress exerting its authority as a co-equal branch to the executive. And it seems as if during this presidency, Congress has kind of eschewed that role in matters such as not standing up to the president's constant condemnation of the special counsel, and really congressional authority on
Article 1 versus Article 2. I just want to get to a lot of questions. So Article 1 versus Article 2.
And particularly that, as well as just the Russia investigation as a whole. It seems like Congress hasn't really wanted to exert its right of independence and allowing these things to proceed without presidential or executive
Let me ask you this.
interference.
Is it still going on? It is, isn't it? It hasn't been ended. It's still going on. But if we want to take our Article 1 seriously, we have to oversee the executive branch. FISA is a very powerful law. FISA is a law where we, Congress, gave the executive branch the ability to take someone's civil liberties away without their knowledge. So it's really important that we oversee the executive branch who are using this extremely important tool over our civil liberties. I'd say a few other things. Obviously, the judges that we're advancing, we believe, are Article 1 judges, judges that believe in not having too much discretion to the executive branch. One of the first bills we passed around here is what we call the REINS Act, where big rules and regulations that have the full force of law come back to Congress for a final vote and approval or amendment before they go into effect. So we have a pretty vibrant Article 1 power restoration plan. We've passed many of those bills, not to mention the fact that the way we write our bills now are far more prescribed. So look, if you don't agree with the administration, that's one thing. But in many of these areas, we agree on these things. We agree on these policies. So what we're going to do is guard the Article 1 prerogatives, which is overseeing potential abuses of big laws like FISA, which could compromise a person's civil liberties, to making sure that regulations, which are basically laws, aren't written by unelected bureaucrats, but are written by the people who are elected to write the laws. And so that is, I would say we've done a great deal to advance our Article 1 powers. Yeah, over here. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Charlotte Kahan. I'm interning with Congressman Crowley's office this summer, and thank you for coming. So my question speaks to something you mentioned about accepting good ideas even if it doesn't come from your side. So this has to do with healthcare policy. The Affordable Care Act incorporates some elements of free market capitalism that Republicans advocated for in the 80s, for example. And I'm wondering why...
Which one? I'm just curious, what piece do you mean?
Just generally, like during Reagan's administration, this was an idea that some Republicans had advocated for. Generally, free market integration in the healthcare sector. So I'm wondering why Republicans don't think it's a good idea anymore.
Yeah, so I wouldn't agree with the premise of the question. So first of all, take a look at the bill that we passed out of here as a response to it, as a replacement. I think you need to have more participants in the marketplace. Almost half the counties in America are down to one insurer left. That's not free market. That's basically a monopoly. So what we want to do is have a situation where we can have more insurers participate so we as patients can benefit from choice and competition, which does more to create innovation and lower costs. The Affordable Care Act didn't do that. It did the opposite. We believe risk pools are a smarter way to cover people with pre-existing condition, give them more choices, more affordable care, while freeing up the vast majority of people in the individual market so they can have more choices. The Affordable Care Act got rid of that. So we think the Affordable Care Act went the opposite direction. It also made it, I passed an amendment back in 2003 creating something called health savings accounts. Health savings accounts was a free market idea where you could use your own pre-tax dollars to buy under-deductible expenses, bring consumer pressure to the healthcare sector, and then have a catastrophic plan on top of it. The Affordable Care Act reversed that. So I really do take issue with the premise of the question, which is, I really believe that the Affordable Care Act consolidated. It didn't advance free market principles. It did not advance choice and competition. And as a result, that's why we're seeing double-digit premium increases and basically healthcare monopolies, which aren't serving people very well. So that is why our proposal, a replacement, did the things I just described. How about the dude over there?
Time for one more question.
Hey, I'm Ben. I'm from Colorado. I go to Colorado State University, and I'm interning for
That's
Senator
the one in
Gardner.
Fort Collins, right?
Yep, sure is.
Who are you intern for?
Senator Gardner.
Okay.
I follow you on Twitter. You mentioned that, and you do take a lot of flack on Twitter. And the question that I just had for you is really, how does that make you feel? And how no, really, like, I
don't even pay attention to it.
And how do you be strong? And
don't take the bait
combat
and
that?
don't worry about it. You know, just honestly, you guys, I see this with, with your generation. Don't take it so personally, and don't be personal with other people. That's the whole point I'm trying to make is, none of us have it all figured out, especially if you're, 18 to 22 years old. You don't have it all figured out. You can learn from other people. And oh, by the way, it may feel good for a moment to go after someone, to be snarky, to attack them. What is it? Just think about what you're doing to kind of poison the well of society. Think about what you're doing to try and just degrade the tone of our debate. So all you can control is your own actions. So just think about it that way. With respect to myself and Twitter, I don't pay attention to it. It's just that quite simple. And when I do see it, so what? I know who I am. I know what I believe. I know what I want to achieve. And I know I still have a lot to learn. I've been in Congress for 20 years. I still have a lot to learn. But I still believe that this great experiment, this American idea, this beautiful system we have, is the best system that we've ever had in the history of mankind. Democratic capitalism, individual, whatever you want to call it, our Bill of Rights, the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence. It's a great system. It's a great idea. But it is being challenged these days with this tribalism, with this degradation. And so just think about your own response to it and don't worry about the rest. If you let it get under your skin, then you're probably going to attack in kind, and it doesn't work. So don't let it get under your skin in the first place. I guess they're telling me I got to go. Hey, it's great being with you guys. Look, probably some of you agree with me, some of you don't. That's great. I'm glad you're here. It's really important that you're here, that you're learning. And I got to tell you, I started off as an intern, then I came as staff, then I went home and ran for Congress. You can make, this is the last point I want to say, is you can make a huge difference in this country at a young age. So I hope you leave inspired. I hope you leave knowing that wherever you come from, whatever you believe, in this country with our system, you can have a huge impact and make a big difference. Take stock in that. I did, and I feel grateful for having done so. Thank you very much, and have a great internship. Take care of you.
So again, guys, that was Speaker Paul Ryan addressing his congressional interns for the summer. Pretty cool that he got to do that this morning. That was their live stream that we just took so that you guys could see it. And he had a little Q&A session after, so he gave a little time to them, which was neat. But let's take a look now at some of the top stories that we've been working on here and across our country. A lot of our sister stations put these together. We'll take a little recap of yesterday. If you watched, most of our stream was President Trump in Kansas City. And we have a little recap of that as well as some other stories in our top stories. Check it out.
Was intended to be a tribute to veterans, but Mr. Trump also used his speech to promote his policies and extend an unusual invitation to the White House.
There is no greater force for peace and justice than the United States military.
President Trump, in his first visit to Kansas City as commander-in-chief, paid tribute to the men and women who served in the armed forces.
We will never forget what you did for us, ever.
The president also used his 50-minute speech at the Veterans of Foreign Wars Convention to tout his administration's achievements, particularly his recent summit with North Korea's Kim Jong-un.
We had a fantastic meeting with Chairman Kim, and it seems to be going very well.
The president went on to make his case for a border wall, a space force, and more tariffs.
We have to think of ourselves. You have to see these trade deals I'm working on. They're a disaster.
While also highlighting efforts to overhaul the Department of Veterans Affairs.
So you don't have to wait online for 2.5 weeks to see a doctor, like in the past. Veterans' choice has been passed.
But a crowd highlight was when 94-year-old Alan Jones, a veteran himself, took to the stage to make a personal ask of the president.
I'm going to be 95 years of age, April 11th of next year. Hopefully that you will allow me to bring my family into the Oval Office to meet you.
The VA has lacked a confirmed leader since March, when the president fired Secretary David Shulkin amid questions of taxpayer-funded travel. But just yesterday, the Senate voted to confirm President Trump's pick to replace him, 55-year-old Robert Wilkie. In Washington, Ray Bogan, Fox News.
Lawyers representing the U.S. government are back in court today, updating a federal judge on the efforts to reunite more than 2,500 children separated from their families.
All the parents that are currently detained that have children detained are all being transferred.
According to court filings, 2,551 children ages 5 to 17 were separated. Of those, more than 1,600 are possibly eligible for reunification. More than 870 reunions have already happened. Another 538 are approved, but ACLU attorneys pressed the government on a different set of numbers. More than 900 are either not eligible or not yet known, including more than 460 cases where the parent was potentially deported without their child. The fury over zero tolerance has protesters taking to the streets, some calling for the abolishment of immigration and customs enforcement. Potential Democratic presidential candidates, Senators Kamala Harris, Elizabeth Warren, and Kirsten Gillibrand, have suggested dismantling the agency since Congress funds it. President Trump vows that would be a dangerous mistake.
Because we have some of the worst drug dealers, terrorists, criminals. And ICE goes up there and they walk in like it's another day in the office. Thank goodness for ICE.
In general, illegal border crossings are down compared to recent months, says U.S. Customs and Border Protection. Still, this year's numbers are up over last. In June, more than 42,500 apprehensions were made along the southern border, compared to more than 21,000 the year before. This as the administration moves ahead with its plans to build a border wall. The president showed off 8 prototypes this past spring in San Diego. Funding of President Trump's border wall has hit some snags. First of all, Mexico continues to refuse to pay for it, and Congress doesn't appear to be ready to fully fund it either. In Dallas, Casey Stiegel, Fox News. The funding of President Trump's border wall has hit some snags.
What has been released now is a secret recording of a 2016 conversation between then-candidate Donald Trump and his personal attorney, Michael Cohen, and they appear to be talking about paying the National Enquirer parent company for the rights to former Playboy model Karen McDougal's story that she had an affair with Trump more than a decade ago. A portion of that recording was released on CNN.
Listen, what financing? We'll have to pay you. So pay with cash. No. No.
What exactly does Trump say about paying cash? His attorney, Rudy Giuliani, says it's quite evident Trump wanted this above board.
The transcript makes it quite clear at the end that President Trump says, quote, "Don't pay with cash." Cohen then interrupts and says, No, I got it. And then you hear distinctly, if you're careful and you slow it down, check. And then Cohen follows with no, and then quickly cuts off the tape.
And while the recording is difficult to make out, it does at least make clear that the president was aware of McDougal's claim back in 2016. But the fact that Michael Cohen's attorney, Lonnie Davis, released the recording also suggests Cohen is looking out for himself.
He's going to cooperate with the prosecutors. He's going to flip. He's going to try to get immunity, and he's going to testify against Donald Trump. Whether he has anything to say that's incriminating is a real question.
Fire crews throughout the West getting hammered by a massive heat wave this week, bringing triple-digit temperatures to the region, making it harder to get a handle on a number of fast-moving wildfires. Near Yosemite National Park, more than 3,000 firefighters are working to contain the Ferguson fire, with authorities forced to evacuate and close most of the park until conditions improve.
Strictly for visitor safety, we have to close the roads. We can't have vehicles on that road because you've got firefighting equipment, you've got firefighters, you've got air operations.
The fire already burned through more than 57 square miles. Local businesses are worried they may not recover before the end of the summer.
A little crazy. It's kind of going over my head.
We were almost fully booked, and now some of the online booking companies are automatically canceling guest reservations.
Meanwhile, out east, the opposite problem. Massive flooding hitting parts of the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic after days of torrential rainfall. Police are urging drivers to use extreme caution and stay off roads if it's not safe.
It doesn't take much water to make a vehicle hard to control, so that's why we say if you can't see the roadway because of the water, turn around and go back a different direction.
Folks out here in the west should be getting some relief later this week. Forecasters predicting the worst of the heat should be over by Thursday. In Los Angeles, William Lajeunesse, Fox News.
Ivanka Trump is hanging up her namesake clothing and accessory line to focus on her public policy career in Washington. Tuesday's announcement comes more than a year after the 36-year-old stepped away from the company to focus on her role as senior advisor to her father, President Trump. A spokeswoman says it was not poor performance, but lack of growth that spelled the end of the line for the fashion line. After her father's inauguration, the brand saw an initial spike in sales. But since then, the 4-year-old company met a number of challenges, including the Grab Your Wallet campaign, which pushed consumers to boycott all Trump brands, and the decision by some stores to drop the brand due to poor sales. 18 staff members who worked for the company were laid off.
Yeah, I'd say, yeah, we do.
Absolutely.
Yes, we do.
Yes?
Yes. Yes.
Each of those 6 New Yorkers advocated for the funding, evolution, and survival of public libraries, joining thousands online Monday who, more angrily, expressed similar sentiments. That was fantastic. New York Public Library Chief Branch Library Officer Christopher Platt logged onto social media Monday afternoon and found his timelines, which he admitted probably sample from more library-focused individuals than the average person's feed, lambasting a Forbes.com opinion piece written by a Long Island University economics professor, arguing we ought to replace public libraries with Amazon because people now study in Starbucks, get their books online, and his local library claims too many of his tax dollars. You know, there's a few things I've learned in life, and one is not to get in between people and their libraries. The piece's author declined to respond to Fox 5's request for comment, but Forbes confirmed it removed his piece from its site because the business magazine felt it fell outside of his area of expertise. Platt pointed out in the last few years, the New York Public Library has grown its program offerings, programs seemingly not available on Amazon, by more than 42%. Reading, learning how to use Microsoft Office, learning how to converse in English. The New York Public Library, with its 53 million items, 17 million annual visits, and $346 million annual budget, is not one's average small-town American public library. But in many ways, it still functions as a very local institution. To provide free and open access to knowledge, to learning, and to inspiration. We share that with Topeka, we share that with Poughkeepsie, we share it with Los Angeles. That's where I study.
It's a place where you can explore, find your dreams, go into other worlds.
Midtown, I'm Matt King, Fox 5 News.
Cosby's designation as a sexually violent predator comes from the state's Sexual Offenders Assessment Board and may be accepted or rejected by the trial judge in the case, which is why Montgomery County District Attorney Kevin Steele formally requested Tuesday a hearing with Judge Stephen O'Neill to make that ruling. It would happen prior to Cosby's scheduled September sentencing on 3 aggravated indecent assault convictions. If O'Neill were to confirm the designation, Cosby would remain on the sex offenders registry for the rest of his life. It would also increase the treatment he'd be forced to undergo. But for Cosby, 81 and in frail health, those changes may be minor.
What's the real impact?
Bruce, I think in this particular case, it's more of a shame factor than anything.
Defense attorney Bill Brennan has been handling sex offender cases for 30 years.
Not just the personal shame factor, but from the legal standpoint, for the case to go into sentencing designated an SVP is a disadvantage.
Cosby's retrial featured prosecution testimony from the victim, Andrea Constand, and from 5 additional accusers, 5 of more than 60 women who've come forward to say the legendary entertainer befriended them, then drugged and molested them. What might a formal legal label on Cosby mean to those women? Dr. Monique Howard is executive director at Women Organized Against Rape.
From a community perspective, that's how many people have already seen Bill Cosby, as a sexually violent predator. He's a predator. He chose, he initiated attacks and violence. He plotted. And that's what predators do. We need to move toward the healing for these women.
And you think this designation, again, that added validation?
Sure, it's a first good start.
Yeah, I think, yeah, we'll do.
God bless you, Dr. Wilson.
Willie Wilson handing out $100,000 in cash Sunday morning at the New Covenant Missionary Baptist Church.
Once you get the money, please go out the door.
Wilson says it's part of his annual effort to help people pay their skyrocketing property taxes and not a blatant vote buying scheme.
I've been giving away money for years out into the community because a lot of people just don't have ideas, don't have food.
Also speaking at the church, while Wilson was handing out the hundreds, Illinois Governor Bruce Rauner, who has donated $200,000 to Wilson's foundation.
Well, as far as I know, no money of mine got handed out to anybody. We're checking right now. If it did, I'm going to demand my money back.
Rauner says he supports Wilson's efforts to help people pay their taxes, but says it needs to be applied for and accounted for by check.
I think that the idea of handing out cash if you're a candidate for office is outrageous. It should not happen.
The head of Illinois' Democratic Party calling Rauner's presence at the church a highly unethical campaign stunt. And the campaign ethics group says even if no laws were broken, it doesn't pass the smell test.
So he's running for mayor. He had the candidate. He had Bruce Rauner, who is our governor, give a speech. How could the average voter not perceive that sort of as a conflict of interest?
The State Board of Elections says there was no violation of campaign law because Wilson was handing out his own money, not political cash. But if that money came from Wilson's charitable foundation, which he denies, that could be a violation of the state's nonprofit laws. Dane Placco, Fox 32 News.
An attorney representing the family of 28-year-old Marquise McGlockton says Florida's Stand Your Ground self-defense law does not justify his shooting death. And on Tuesday, she made a public plea for officials to charge the gunman, 47-year-old Michael Drechka. Police say last week's incident began when Drechka confronted McGlockton's girlfriend, who was illegally parked in a handicapped spot outside of a convenience store in Clearwater. Surveillance video shows when McGlockton came out of the store, the two men started arguing. The video shows McGlockton pushing Drechka to the ground. Seconds later, Drechka pulled out a gun and fired, killing the father of 3. Drechka told police he feared for his life and was merely standing his ground. Officials determined Drechka was defending himself and has not been charged. But a McGlockton family lawyer argues Drechka was not in imminent danger during their altercation.
if you saw the number 88? What would you think that is?
Race car number?
I would say Petropane, isn't he?
Right.
It actually is a numerical code for Heil Hitler.
We're giving you an education in hate on license plates.
What would you think if you saw WP on a license plate?
Witness protection.
White power.
Millions of people have vanity or customized plates, but thousands have been banned just here in Illinois. Here's why.
We have approximately 6,400 words that are inhibited, which is to say if one goes to our website for the pick a plate and you put that in there, it's going to say you can't get it.
Dave Drucker with the Secretary of State's office says the state looks for three things: a general obscenity, a sexual reference, or hate involving race or ethnicity.
Every month we add words.
And that third category isn't always as obvious as it might look. Drucker says one man had no idea the number 1488 on his plate are numbers used by white supremacists.
We did reach out to the person who's got the plate, and I might add, he was mortified when he found out.
Those are numbers that are very specific to the white supremacist neo-Nazi movement.
Lonnie Nassiter with the Anti-Defamation League keeps a close eye on hate speech and incidents.
We have in fact seen an uptick in extremist activity, extremist language.
He says while most people might not know the language of hate speech, it's important to be vigilant.
There's a whole kind of underworld of the way in which extremists use numbers to associate themselves.
The number 28, what if you saw that on a license plate?
Probably wouldn't think anything of it. It's probably a significant number for someone.
It is a white supremacist alphanumeric code for blood and honor.
And it's not just numbers on plates, it can be letters too.
What if you saw one that said K-Bark, K-A-B-A-R-K?
K-Bark? Do the dog?
It's actually a Ku Klux Klan acronym.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
For its part, Drucker says his office monitors each plate that comes in, starting with software that rejects known inhibitors. Then the remainders get a second look, with the team using Urban Dictionary and Google to research each and every plate.
We do look at it closely, and then things do change. Something that might not have existed yesterday is potentially an insult today.
I think it's important that somebody does that, so people don't think they're better than anybody else.
Sally Schulze, Fox News.
Paying the bills is still a major source of anxiety for most Americans. That, according to a new study by the American Psychiatric Association, which found that 66% of Americans are anxious or concerned about paying bills, a 10% jump from just last year.
People are starting to step back and really understand the stress that they're under. I mean, they're working hard to make a paycheck, but that paycheck is not going as far as they think it should or as that it ought to.
A closer look into the study shows women are much more concerned, and their anxiety level jumped higher than men since last year.
Women are better planners. They are looking to the long end, and they're also the family caregiver most oftentimes. They're more in tune to what's going on and also the desire for a plan. Men are planners as well, but I don't think they look as long-term, and they're a little bit more risk takers. But I think both of them can do better by acknowledging where they are versus where they want to go.
Meanwhile, Northwestern Mutual releasing a study with some shocking retirement statistics. 33% of Americans have less than $5,000 saved for retirement, and 20% have nothing saved at all.
That is a big issue, according to the study by Northwestern. But the reality is that people can do this. When people get on a plan and they start budgeting, they start saving, and they get themselves out of debt, then they're able to invest 15% of their income for their future.
That same study finds that 46% of Americans are concerned they won't have enough for retirement, but haven't taken any steps to prepare. Still, money experts say it's never too late to start.
This anxiety is real, and it only will grow if people don't take action. Moving in the right direction, just like making your bed each morning, starting to budget, starting to look at this and identifying that you want better for yourself and your family, that's the first step.
After all, it's your cash. Hillary Vaughn, Fox Business.
Motherhood is a full-time job with constant overtime and limited breaks.
Mothers are regularly on the go, and the demands can be overwhelming. Psychology professor Nava Silton says that moms often need a recharge.
Motherhood can be very stressful, whether it's financial stresses, time stresses, just trying to get a whole lot done in a very short period of time. And so I think it's really important for mothers to be rejuvenated and refreshed.
Moms are taking the much-needed time for themselves with a momcation, a vacation with other moms who understand the need for me time.
It was a great experience. I'm glad I did it.
Judy Kosh is a mom of 2 boys and knows what it feels like to be on call 24/7.
It's nonstop. We're this activity, that activity, this sport, this class. It's constant go, go, go.
A close friend convinced Judy to take time for herself.
We're talking and she said, you know, I go on these mom trips all the time. Why don't you come? I kind of laughed at her. I'm like, what do you mean a mom trip? I can't leave my kids. I can't leave my husband. No, you have to come.
For a change, moms are able to do whatever they want or do nothing at all.
A momcation typically runs anywhere from about 2 to 3 days to up to a week. And this time off is not only a benefit for mom, it's also a benefit for the rest of the family.
Nava says that it's good for children to see their parents' needs met.
I think it's very important for kids to see that balance that ideally needs to be achieved in a family situation.
I came back, I was a better mom, a more patient mom, a better wife. You know, you learn to appreciate what you have at home because you got to have that break from it all.
Audrey Puente, Fox News.
Very few 70s rockers are still rocking after 4+ decades. Vet Michael McDonald knows he's the exception rather than the rule.
It's a testament to great fortune or good luck, you know, and I don't take that lightly. But for the time being, the longer I get to do it, the more I appreciate it.
With a string of top 10 hits as a member of the Doobie Brothers, other successful collaborations, and a backup gig on classic Steely Dan songs, McDonald has 9 solo albums, including his latest, Wide Open.
A lot of it is just about, you know, our typical generic fears that we have as human beings, you know, of not being loved or not understanding or not appreciating when we are loved, you know, all those things, you know, as they kind of come down the pipe.
And with a summer tour and an upcoming holiday album, the 66-year-old 5-time Grammy winner is still having fun doing what he loves.
And it's every bit as much fun, it really is, maybe more so. And I think I cherish my time doing it more as time goes on. I know that at some point in time, you know, I won't do it anymore. That's an eventuality, you know. But for the time being, the longer I get to do it, the more I appreciate it.
In Hollywood, Michelle Polino, Fox News.
You can see the damage on these. You know, we're gonna.
All right, guys, so those are some of the top stories across the country and here in D.C. that we've been thinking about and following today on this Wednesday, July 25th. I want to go over now, though, to a live event that we have going on right now in our backyard here at George Washington University. It's pretty interesting. It's actually a high school leadership summit for conservative students. It's a 4-day leadership type of summit. A lot of lawmakers are slated to speak at this, including House Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy. I know this morning they had, who else was there? Rick Santorum and some other sort of notable conservative leaders. I believe 700 or so high school students are involved, and they're invited to attend. And it's for those kids who want to be part of this, part of the political climate, the current events, and activism in sort of their side of politics. So it's not often that we kind of see something like this. But again, this is day 3 of this 4-day conference. It's happening right here at George Washington University, and it is back from its lunch break. So we're going to catch the kind of tail end of our stream here and jump right over there to this auditorium where this is going on. Again, High School Leadership Summit for conservative students. And there are a few notable speakers coming up to the podium. So let's listen in to see who's there right now.
That does not guarantee failure.
because money alone does not determine the winner in politics. Well, what about the news media? Maybe the news media with their editorial pages and their ability to shape the narrative and the vocabulary, maybe it's the news media that determines the outcome of an election. How many editorial board writers voted for Donald Trump? Probably not many, other than at the Wall Street Journal, right? Probably not many. So the news media itself does not determine the winner of a political contest. Well, what about party registration? What about whichever party is biggest, has a huge numerical advantage, and that maybe that party has a natural advantage to win? Well, to that, I would introduce you to the People's Democratic Republic of Massachusetts. Look at these numbers. For every one poor, lonely Republican who cannot talk to anybody about his party at the family barbecue, there are 3 communist, socialist, Democrats, or vegetarians on the other side. 3 to 1, the Democrats outnumber Republicans in Massachusetts. And who is the governor of Massachusetts today? Republican Charlie Baker. Now, I am all for annoying the left, right? I am for annoying the left because I don't trust the left with anything important, sharp objects, elected office, nothing. However, the way we annoy the left the most is by doing something like this. If the Democrats cannot win in Massachusetts, we know that they have a problem. Oh, and as a corollary to this, who is the most, out of all 50 governors, or if you were to ask Barack Obama, all 56 governors, out of all 50 governors, who is the most popular governor in America today? Right there, Republican Charlie Baker. By the way, in Maryland, which is nearby, in heavily Democratic Maryland, who is the governor? Republican Larry Hogan. And who is the second most popular governor in America today? Larry Hogan. Right? So what does this tell us? It means that just because your candidate or yourself in the future are running in a district where you're outnumbered, that does not mean that the other team automatically gets to win. And remember this. Well, what about it's the side with the best ideas that eventually wins? Well, that is not automatic either. Here you have 3 Republicans who, throughout whatever faults they may have, all had better ideas than their Democrat opponent, and they all lost. Having the best ideas is not enough to win in politics. If having the best ideas was enough to win, it would be easy. Our candidates would file, their candidates would file, the good guys would win, the good gals would win, the vegetarians would lose, it would all be over. And my apologies for any vegetarians in the room. It's okay, we call that outreach. We're glad you're here. So having the best ideas is not enough to win. Well, who does get to win? If you take a look at American history as a series of movements, going all the way back to 1776, if you include in that history, as we must, the civil rights movement, the anti-war movement, the labor movement, the movement to give women the right to vote, the conservative movement of the 1980s, the winner of a political contest over time is determined by the number and the effectiveness of the activists and leaders on each side. That's who gets to win in politics. It's not enough to have the right ideas. We have to maximize the number and the effectiveness of our activists and leaders, which is why I'm glad that you're here. Now, how many of you would say that you're normal? Oh, you knew that this was a trick question, right? I mean, how many normal high school students are here in Washington, D.C., indoors, listening to a guy in a suit talking about politics on a weekday? Nobody. The reality is that you are not normal. You're special. And I mean that in the best of ways. How I mean that is you know more about politics, civics, government, world affairs, national affairs, and local affairs than 99% of the people who are not in this room. That is the reality. And you will leave this room with more knowledge and more skills than when you entered. And so I hope that you will use those skills to crush every vegetarian, communist, socialist, and Democrat out there. But that's not a partisan statement, because what's more important than any political party is the ideas of that individual. What's more important than a political party is the idea of that individual. So if there is a lonely Democrat out there who supports conservative ideas, then that is a good thing. There are some people who take a look at this leftward shift of the Democratic Party and say, this is great. It's not great. It's not good for the country. The fact that a major political party in this country would nominate an open socialist is not a good sign for the country. It means that Democrats like Harry Truman and JFK would probably not recognize much of what they see in the Democratic Party today. That's the reality. Let me tell you about these two men up on the screen. Both of them ran for president. The man on the left is Barry Goldwater. He ran for president in 1964. Barry Goldwater had great ideas. He lost 44 states. Now let me tell you, it takes a lot of work to lose 44 states. Any one of us in this room could run for president and win more than 6 states. But Ronald Reagan ran in 1980. Virtually the same ideas, virtually the same philosophy. And he won in 44 states. Now, same ideas. Number one, it proves that having the best ideas is not enough to win. But what happened between 1964 and 1980 is that something grew. What grew out of the 1964 Goldwater campaign was the modern conservative movement. Because hundreds of thousands of Americans who were drawn to the ideas of Barry Goldwater, when he lost, they did not leave politics. They got involved. They started organizations. They started groups like ALEC, which is an organization for conservative state legislators. They started new magazines. They got involved in politics. They ran for office. So that by the time Ronald Reagan ran in 1980, he had hundreds of thousands of people who were skilled in the ability to organize and communicate. They had learned political technology, not just the ideas of the conservative movement, but how to put on a press conference, how to organize a precinct walk, how to run a campaign so that it's not broke, how to raise money, how to communicate through the media, how to go door to door. These are the techniques that hundreds of thousands of people had that helped to propel Ronald Reagan to victory in 1980. They understood how to organize and to communicate. And these techniques work as well for the left as they do the right, because political technology is philosophically neutral. There is no liberal way to hold a press conference. There is no conservative way to do a precinct walk. These techniques work as well for the left as they do the right, which is why there are several dozen organizations on the left that are always working to try to train their people in the best way to organize and communicate. That is why it is so critical that we do the same. Now, if you were on campus and you see these two tables, right, which one of these two is more effective? Anyone who says the table on the left is more effective just has to go right now, okay? So there is a right way and a wrong way to run a table. What's the difference here? No chairs, the person on the right. We have material on the table. We have someone who's engaged in front of the table, etc. Minor example of political technology in action. This document is the same as this document. This is Arnold Schwarzenegger's biography. This document is the same as that document. The substance is the same, yet this is written in the most difficult way to read possible. It's all caps with a sans serif font, black text on a white background. You want your yard signs to look like this, and you want your opponent's yard signs to look like that, right? There's a difference, right? So these are all different small little techniques that make a difference on the political battlefield. Now let me introduce you to this. For those of you who will take classes on political science, this is a bell curve. I'm going to give you a preview of this. This is a common thing that's taught in political science class, that in any population, we have a certain number of moderates. Most people are moderates, and then as you go to the edges, you have lesser and lesser people who are either on the political left or the political right. And the underlying belief of this is that whichever candidate could be closest to that line, to that mean, has the overwhelming advantage in an election. That's the candidate who appeals to the center and so on and so forth. There's only one problem with this chart. It cannot explain how any of these people won their offices. Because all of the people up on the screen won in areas which were overwhelmingly of the other party. So in San Diego today, Republicans are number 3 in voter registration. 3. Democrats are number 1, no party is number 2, and Republicans are number 3. Yet the mayor today in the city of San Diego is Republican Kevin Faulconer. Number 2 is Rudy Giuliani. Rudy Giuliani was elected mayor of New York City in a city where Democrats outnumber Republicans by 6-1, yet he was elected twice. Chris Christie was elected twice governor of New Jersey, and it's not even legal to be a Republican in New Jersey. The most heavily Latino state in America is New Mexico. Republicans don't do as well among Latino voters. Everyone knows that. Yet, who is the governor of New Mexico today? Republican Susana Martinez. And the second most popular governor today is Republican Larry Hogan of Maryland. All of these candidates defeated a candidate and defeated an opponent who was closer to that mean, yet they won. Why is that? Because of this. The common political science and media view of the world is that everyone falls on this one-dimensional plane called political philosophy. You're either left, center, or right. And that's their view. And that's the only dimension that matters to them. But yet, if you are pro-life and for raising taxes, where do you fall on that chart? You get lumped in with the moderates, typically, even though you're moderate on neither one of those issues. The reality is that leaders and all of us in politics exist in 3 dimensions. And those 3 dimensions are, number 1, your philosophy or your ideas. Number 2 is your narrative or your story. What have you done with your life? What skills do you bring to the table, etc.? And the 3rd dimension is your skill. Do you have the skills necessary to compete and to win? Now, I'm a big fan of Scott Walker. I think he's a great governor. Now, I worked for a different candidate. I was the presidential campaign spokesman for Senator Ted Cruz in 2016. Yet I have tremendous respect for Scott Walker. I have tremendous respect for all the Republicans who ran for president in 2016. How did Scott Walker do in the Iowa caucuses? He didn't, because his campaign was broke and he was out of the race by the time February came around. Skills matter in politics. It does not matter that you just have the best ideas. You must have the skill necessary to compete and to win. Let me show you a different shape. What you see up on the screen is a chart representing what percentage of people always vote. Notice the shape. It's the exact opposite of the bell curve I showed you. People on the left and people on the right are more likely to vote than people who have less strong convictions. Look at the percentage of people who contributed to a candidate, left, right, center. Look at the same thing, contacted an elected official, attended a campaign event, or worked or volunteered for a campaign. The reality is that Americans move toward candidates who stand for something over candidates who stand for nothing. That is a lesson to be learned here. If you run for office and your message is, occasionally, when it's prudent, we might consider sometimes cutting a tax or 2. That is not a winning message. Government is wasteful, and at every single opportunity, we should cut taxes and make it easier for the middle class and people aspiring to the middle class to make ends meet. That is a winning message. Our mission has to be to use political technology, the ability to organize and to communicate, to win at every opportunity, to defeat those people who advance big government ideas at every opportunity. And we know that we have our work cut out for us. And we know the direction where the left is going. They're only going further to the left. We saw that with the election of a Democratic socialist in the Democratic primary in New York City recently. She will be in Congress. Republicans will not win that district. This is not a big surprise, right? This is an overwhelmingly Democratic district. She will be in Congress. The activist left is represented by Bernie Sanders, an avowed socialist, more so than Hillary Clinton. That is the direction the other team is going in. How do we win? We organize, we communicate, we use the skills that we have here at every opportunity to elect those candidates who will make government smaller, who will expand individual liberty, who will make taxes lower, and who will ignite the fire to lift people out of poverty in ways that socialism never possibly can do that. That is our mission. That is our mission. And I'm so proud of all of you for choosing to be here today.
So again, guys, that's a live high school leadership summit going on right now at George Washington University. Just cutting into that. It's a 4-day summit for conservative high school students. Pretty interesting stuff. Lots of lawmakers coming to be on the list to speak at this event. Right now, we're getting in some video, though, of President Trump. I want to go over there. This was unbeknownst to me. It just kind of popped up. Let's see what's happening here. And we'll probably roll down our stream after this video.
And no subsidies, the United States would be extremely pleased. We have many countries, we won't say European Union, we have many countries where they have massive barriers and they have massive tariffs, and we have to follow. And you could call it retaliation, but I'd rather just say that we want reciprocal. So whether it's with European Union or others, it has to be reciprocal in nature at a minimum. And we're working on that, and I think we're making tremendous strides. We're doing very well with Mexico. We're doing very well with a lot of countries, actually, right now. And but this is something, as Jean-Claude said, together as a unit, we make up actually more than 50% of the world trade. That's a big number. That's a big number. So we expect something very positive to take place, but you'll be the first to know. Thank you all very much. Appreciate it. Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody. Mr. President, are you worried about what Michael Cohen is going to say? Thank you. Let's keep going. Are you worried about some of the other takes, Mr. President? Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much, everybody.
Why is London not accepting your invitation?
Thanks, everybody. Thank you, everybody. Let's go. Come on, guys. Thank you very much.
Why is London not accepting your invitation, Mr. President?
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
We're done.
Do you know that the European Union actually does not have a unified position on trade to come to you?
We're leaving now.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. We're going. Thank you. Thank you. Let's go. Thank you. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. We're done.
Yelled at us for not turning right to
Well, this has been a busy week for me. And what I want you to know is that I have met with some of the top government leaders, people in the cabinet, leaders in the conservative movement, and every single one of them was either on their way here or had just left here. So you must be really, really important. So I remember the first time that I came to Washington and it changed me forever. How many of you, this is the first time you've been in this city? Yeah. When you leave, I think the time that you've spent here and the experience that you have is going to be phenomenal. But there's one thing I want you to leave here with, knowing that this is your city. It belongs to you. My first trip here was when I was actually in high school. And when I was in high school, and I was a lot skinnier and a lot cuter back in those days. Oh, you are so sweet. I never dreamed about the things that I would have the opportunity to do. Yes, today I have the privilege of being the president of the Heritage Foundation, which, according to the University of Pennsylvania, is the most influential think tank in the world. They said that, but I would add, for the benefit of those who may not know, and you should, that the Heritage Foundation is a unabashedly conservative public policy think tank. When I first came to Washington, I was inspired by the opportunity to fight for America. Like you, I was filled with desire, fueled by energy, ready to jump in and make a difference. And so I studied hard, began a career that eventually took me into the White House and the State House. For some strange reason, the Lord has given me the opportunity to serve in every sector of this country's economy, in the private sector, in boardrooms of major companies, in the academy as the dean of a school of government. Regent University, highly recommended if you want a conservative public policy school. I also want to let you know that I was listening backstage to one of your earlier speakers, and it was my responsibility serving under President Bush to get us through 9/11 as the director of the U.S. Office of Personnel Management. Those were some difficult days. And for me, taking all of those experiences, serving presidents and governors at the federal, state, and local level, in the private sector, in the corporate sector, to end with the presidency of the most influential conservative public policy think tank in the world is a real crown jewel. So, I think it's safe to say that no one would have thought that the poor kid from the public housing projects in Richmond, Virginia, born to a welfare mom and an alcoholic dad, would one day have the opportunity to lead the most significant public policy institute influencing governments not only here but around the world. And I want you to know why I share that with you. I share that with you by way of encouragement. I told an audience just recently of young people very much like you that as a grandmother now, I have special grandmother powers. And my special grandmother powers allow me to see things that others cannot see. And I want to tell you what I see. I see a United States Senator right over here. Oh my gosh, there is a President of the United States sitting right over here. And with my super duper grandmother powers sitting over here, I see a full-time stay-at-home mom that's gonna raise a cadre of kids that are gonna rock the world. And right over in here somewhere, I see a corporate executive that's going to take the knowledge, skills, and abilities that have been given to him or her and go out, girls rock, and start a company that are going to hire untold hundreds of thousands of people and build this economy. But for now, you're at the beginning of that journey. And I can't think of a better place for you to be than here this week at Turning Point, hearing from those individuals who are doing the very things and whose jobs you're going to take. Somewhere out there, right in this room, is a future president of the Heritage Foundation. So, you've got energy, you've got intelligence, you've got drive, you've got patriotism, and you want to use it all for something that we love so much, this great United States of America. So, what are we going to do? And I'd like to suggest a couple of things for you. One of the things that I determined when I took over the reins of the Heritage Foundation is that if you're not growing, you're dying. And our job is to grow the conservative movement. And so, y'all are so excited. I love you. I'm used to talking I'm used to talking to staid and stodgy audiences, and they aren't engaged, and I am so pumped. I mean, you all are wonderful. Okay, so here's what I need you to do for me. We are going to grow this movement. Recently, I was talking to a group of interns, and I asked them, how many of you are here to get the knowledge, skills, and abilities to go out and annihilate the left? Don't. Because a few of them said, yes, that's what I want to do. No, I have a different assignment for you. I want you to go out and win them, not annihilate them. You have the knowledge, the skills, the ability to go out and win them to our side. So many people are intent in blowing up bridges. I want you to build bridges, win them over, add them to our ranks. We must build bridges to build consensus. Consensus among young people that freedom is always the right answer. Consensus among your age group that free markets are always the best way to lift people out of poverty. Consensus that limited government has always been the way to deliver all of that to the American people. In speaking to a group of young people the other day, I was approached by this young African-American progressive who literally got in my face and said to me, "You people on the right have issued in an atmosphere of vitriolic, lacking in civility, angry, mean-spirit politics unlike anything this country has ever seen." I have to tell you what my answer was. I said, "You know who you're talking to, right?" You are talking to a black, conservative, pro-life, evangelical, Republican. Who's been at this for 30 years. I have been the recipient of everything mean and nasty that the left can throw at any human.
All right, guys. Well, we're going to come back to the newsroom and welcome you guys back. Thanks for joining us today on our stream. We usually go from around 11:30 to 2 p.m. Eastern time, and we're trying to bring in all the feeds that we have coming in that are live, and that, of course, is ongoing. This is a conference that goes on through tomorrow, I believe. It's a 4-day conference, so we may have some more of that on for you tomorrow. We'll also have any of the other news that is coming into us, top stories, and anything that President Trump, of course, is doing. And really anything else that breaks on this gloomy, rainy, muggy week here in D.C. Guys, we wish you the best. Have a great Wednesday. And we'll be back on Thursday with some more news for you from inside our newsroom here at Fox 5 D.C. Take care, guys.